There's something special about oil painting, and so I love using oils to paint the hooves and eyes of my sculptures and my modified plastic models like this Briar horse I resculpted. While it's a similar process to painting with acrylics, there's some neat differences and some cool effects achievable with oils, as well as some challenges, and so I'll share all of my tips. I'll also cover how to work solvent free and show my non toxic cleanup, including cleaning brushes, so stay to the end. I start my eyes with a dark base color and acrylic paint for quick and easy coverage. Once that is fully dry, the following oil painting process is very similar to how I paint in acrylics, but there's some differences. First, I can set up my palette differently. I like to get all of my colors on a sheet of aluminum foil because I can fold it over, squish out all the air, and seal in the paints, saving them for later. Second, since oil paint is usually heavy body paint, it's nice to have a little palette knife to mix the colors, as it's easier and faster than trying to mix with a brush all the time. Also, the painting layers are a little thicker. I use only a tiny bit of paint on my brush so I can apply it thinly, but it's still not as thin as fluid acrylics that you've watered down a lot. To get that same consistency, you would have to use solvents, but since I'm not using solvents on this project, I'm just brushing it on as thinly as I can. Next, I paint the corners of the eyes with a creamy white color to mimic the eyes of a horse when it's looking off to the side. On some breeds or during certain moods, this can get really pronounced. It also looks frightfully hilarious until I add the black circle, like she had zombie eyes or something. The brush I'm using is a pointed round in a size 1, which has a small enough tip for details, but a big enough belly for holding a good amount of paint. Brushes sized 1 through 4 are usually my favorites for detail painting most of my sculptures and customized models. Also, if you're curious about how I sculpt horses completely from scratch, check out my channel. I've also been teaching myself how to mold and cast them in resin, so I'm looking forward to sharing more painting videos on those original sculptures soon. I've added a little bit of Galkyd Light, which is an oil painting medium that helps make the paint a little thinner and also increases some transparency. That last fact is really cool because painting eyes in transparent layers helps mimic the depth and glow you see in real eyes. It gives a nice dewy look. Also, Galkyd speeds the drying time of oil paints, so I can add layers in a few days instead of waiting for many days. Oh, that's the other thing that's different between oils and acrylics. It's so much faster to paint in layers with acrylics because they're usually dry enough for the next layers within minutes, but the oils won't be. They need a few days to reach touch dry, or else the paint just lifts or smears. And while that sounds like a weakness, that's also a strength. Because oil paints are still wet and workable minutes later, I have lots of time to blend. And this lets me try a different technique called painting wet onto wet. You'll see that I basically paint a series of concentric circles, starting with black, then dark brown, to light brown, and back to dark brown. Because it's all workable, I can also blend the edges of all of these colors to get soft transitions. To get a similar effect with acrylics, I would have to use slow dry mediums, and even then, I'd have to paint a lot faster to blend wet onto wet. In that way, I think oil paints are more beginner friendly when first learning how to blend. To finish the eyes, I paint a black square for the pupils. It's not a perfect square, of course. It has rounded corners, and this is where reference photos come in handy if you're not looking at real horse pupils every day. I also make sure that it lines up parallel to the ground line because, cool fact, unlike our eyes, herbivores like horses can spin their eyes as their head moves up or down so that the pupil is always parallel to the ground. This helps them spot predators more easily no matter what position their head is in. Alright, it's hoof time! The hooves are started in red primer, and some of the white paint from the legs has blended over onto the hoof, but that's okay because it helps add depth. Horse hooves often look lighter in color towards the top, so some of my work is already done. Using a small square brush, I paint a thin layer of a creamy pale yellow color, which I mixed from titanium white, unbleached titanium, and a little bit of Naples yellow. And of course, Galk It to help make the paint more fluid. By the way, all of my brushes are soft synthetic brushes, and for oils especially, I like ones with soft tips and a firm body, as I find if they are a little stiff, it makes it easy to push around oil paint. I'm intentionally painting in a streaky manner to mimic the growth rings on hooves. Since thin layers of paint often go on streaky anyway, this is pretty easy. Now, unlike the eyes, I let this layer dry for a couple days before I moved on to the next layer. I mixed unbleached titanium, which is just a creamy white by the way, with burnt umber, a really dark brown. And here's the fun part. I get to bring out this grainer brush, which really puts down some streaky lines. Princeton Brushes makes a few budget-friendly ones, and this is their 1/4" size brush. I've also gotten similar results just by using really old and frayed regular brushes, and lately I've been playing around with using both types of brushes on the same project to get an interesting combination of marks. Much like with the eyes, it's good to have reference of real horse hooves for this to help guide how you paint the growth rings. If realism is your goal, that is. If not, then feel free to go all out. I mix in more unbleached titanium to lighten the mix and very carefully add streaks at the top to help blend the colors towards the edge of the hoof. I'm using a pretty light touch as I don't want to smear the previous layer too much. I just want a gentle transition. Because I was worried about smearing all that progress, I let it dry a couple days before I started adding the vertical lines. And here's the old frayed brush I mentioned earlier. And so you can see now how it looks a little different, and I think it looks great combined with the marks from the grainer brush earlier. Keep your old brushes, everyone. I find variety helps a lot for achieving realism, so I'm intentionally not painting some areas, and in other areas adding even more paint. Again, this is where references can take out a lot of the guesswork. By the way, if anyone is interested in a follow-up on how to paint the bottom of the hooves, let me know. I know people often just like to paint it as a solid color, but some like to really detail it out, so let me know. And now for the promised chapter on how to clean up oil paints, especially from brushes. This is something else that is different than acrylics. There are water miscible oil paints out there, but if using traditional oil paints like I am, they need either a solvent, natural oil, or an anti-grease soap for cleanup. I go solvent-free in my cleanup process and I wipe up excess oil first. I use vegetable oil to wipe any surface clean, and I have a jar of it to help clean the brushes. It's just a sauce jar I rescued from my recycle bin. The tall glass helps trap the paint and pigment at the bottom, and when the brush wipes clean, I go and wash all of the veggie oil off with a gentle brush soap. Since I'm using a food grade oil, which will go rancid instead of curing firm like an artist grade oil, I need to make sure I clean it really well so it won't mix into future paint. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, you might want to check out this next video. Thanks again, and until next time, bye!